out of the wash is just impossible, because you wonder yourself, where in God's name did the one with the orange heel? I put in a pair and they came out odd. The hell with it, I don't care. Once the two are blue in the uppers, it doesn't matter if what colour the soles are. So rather than you laughing at me there, I go on my bare feet. But to fit in with something that matches that, let me tell you a story about shoes. Now, all the stories I tell, as I may have told some of the people here before who know me, are collected by myself. I've been collecting stories from old people for the last 40 years. And some of them are there in the book that you see here in front of me. You can have a look afterwards if you wish. But I know a man is 93, and it tells me, as well as other people in Clare, that he knew a man way back in the 1940s, the early 40s, a man who had the Black Book. Now, I don't know whether any of you know about the Black Book or not. The Black Book is a book of spells. Now, forget all about the stuff that you may have heard about, you know, spell books and fairy books in the nice sense of fairies. This spell book was real. And the man who had it, he could literally put a spell on you. He could make you do what he wanted to. Now, the same man, his name was Captain McKean, M-C-K-E-A-N. Now, that's not a Clare name. As far as I would know, McKean is a northern name, Northern Irish. How he got to Clare, I don't know, and why he got the name Captain was, he wasn't a ship captain, he was a captain for the Fenians. He was a recruiting sergeant captain for the Fenians of 1867. But he had many scrapes with the law, that's definite, but he had this Black Book. Now, where he got it, I don't know that. I've been trying to track it down for years. But the man that's telling me the story, this 93-year-old, who's very much alive, he said he knew the captain. When he was a very, very young man, he knew the captain as an old man. He was a neighbour of his, and he said the captain was a very, very ordinary countryman, a farmer with a small farm in West Clare. But in his young days, obviously, he was a different man entirely, very political and all the rest of it. But the rumour was he had this Black Book, but nobody had ever seen it. Now, everybody wanted to see it, naturally, and you know, as well as I do, that the more mysterious a thing is, the more you want to see it. But there were plenty of stories about what he had done with the book, and how he had put people in that place with the book, but nobody seemed to have seen the book. Anyway, this man told me that one day it was raining, nobody could walk, and he was in with Captain McKean, and the captain was inside in his socks. This is what reminded me now of the story. The captain was in his socks by the fire, and the young fella, the man who was telling me the story, walked in, and they were chatting away. Nothing could be done. It was a rainy day. They were chatting away there. It was an open fire, of course, like the old style. Talking away about this and that and nothing in particular. But, he told me, after a while, the captain, he put his hand in under his waistcoat. And what did he do? Only pulled out a small Black Book. Now, the young man didn't know whether it was the book or not, but he pulled out this Black Book, opened it, and of course the young fellow was fascinated, naturally. Was this the book or not that they had all heard about? But Captain opened it and started to read words that the young fellow couldn't understand. And no, he didn't read them loud. Mutter and mutter and mutter and mutter. And of course the young fellow now listening to this. And all of a sudden, what do you think? He heard the noise behind him, a rustling. Looked back. Now he thought it was the cat, maybe, because the cat might be in the kitchen, might be the dog. Looked back. And holy Christ, he said, what did I see? but his two shoes walking up the kitchen floor. His two shoes walking up the kitchen floor towards us. Now he said, I was petrified. Wouldn't anybody be? I walked right up in front of him, and as calm as you like, he put his 2 feet, stocking feet, into his shoes, walked out the back. Now he must have been walking out to the small house, there was no running water in houses in those days, out to what Connemara men would call Tachanasu, the jacks. And now the man told me I was so frightened, I wanted to run, he said. I nearly wet myself, he said, with the fright. Wouldn't anybody after what I saw, but I was there wondering what I do now. And then in he came again, sat down, and the conversation went on as if nothing had happened. Now, I tell you, as soon as I decently could, I skedaddled out of that house, and I never, ever again went into that house on my own. No, he was a neighbour, and I had been into that house every second day of my life, but I never again went into that house, except that my father might be with me, I did, but on my own, never. Now, he never did me any harm, but to see those 2 shoes walking up the floor on their own, and I know, he says, I know you don't believe me, but I was there and I saw it, and it literally frightened the life out of me. So he said, would you believe these kind of things? I don't know, I'm only telling what the man told me, but I have been listening to these stories for the last 40 years, and I tell you, some of them would frighten you. And the Black Book there, meeting the other crowd, the fairy stories in that, and they're not your Walt Disney fairies, as any of you who have read the book will know, the little bit. Forget about that, where the Irish fairies are concerned. You tangle with the Irish fairies and you're dead. Well, I tell you, I play cards every Sunday night in Crusheen. When I'm invited, because the card game they play in County Clare is called Combs. As that strange game, nice game, of the old game. If there's anybody here from Clare, they'll know what I'm talking about, the old game. Now, I come from Kerry originally, and in Kerry we played 31. In Limerick to be 45. 25, 45, 41, they're all the same game. The count just kept different in different places. Basically it's 5, knave, joker, ace of hearts. In Kerry it is joker, 5, knave and ace of hearts. Same game, very same game. But in Clare, when I went to live in Clare 35 years ago, I couldn't figure out what this bloody game was. They played 3 and 3 and 3. And they keep a different count completely. It's 2 halves for a game, or 3 combs for a game. Now, basically it's an old person's game. They made a tragic mistake. The game has nearly died out because the old people never passed it on to the younger people. And it has declined, and what a pity. Because you see, it isn't a mean game like poker or blackjack or any of these old stupid games where your aim is to break your neighbour. This is a game for fun, and a fiver will keep you going all night. It will, and it's just good crack. And you see these old lads in there, on the table, they're lifting the table and the table up and off the floor, and they're enjoying themselves. Now, of course, they all cheat. And they wouldn't call it cheating, they call it playing tokens. And you just sit back and watch the tokens, and they all have their own tokens, the knave of hearts, ace of spades, king of clubs. They're funny. But a young person wouldn't have a chance with these old lads because they've been playing for the last 60 years together. Now, anyway, I was watching this for quite a while, and at last I got invited in because somebody got a cold of a night, or they got the flu or something, and I was asked any chance you could play, and I did, and I didn't make an easy to myself, so I'd be asked to fill in as a sub other nights, but never invited fully as a full partner. But that, it didn't matter. Now, one of these men, he's still alive, very much alive. I was watching him playing last, what night is tonight? Friday. Well, he was playing last Sunday night and he'll be playing again tomorrow night. He's what, 95. Gas man entirely. But the same man anyway, this particular night, about 5 years ago, he's the same man as a farmer. And on his land, he has a fairy fort. And he told me that this particular fort, he had to trim back the thorns on the white thorn bushes. Now, his wife didn't want him to touch it, leave them alone, leave the bushes alone. And a fort? But no, he had to, because he had sheep, and the sheep were getting tangled on the thorns in the bushes. Now, the same man, he had great respect for folk. He wouldn't go to knock the bushes, no way, just to trim them back. And in spite of what his wife said, he did. Now, just to trim them with a slash hook. Well, his wife, anyway, she... But he did it. Now, while he was doing it, he felt a little pick in his hand and examined it, of course, for nothing. And he continued and did the job, and afterwards, he didn't burn the trimmings, he threw them into the fort. Out of respect. That was grand. I didn't see him for quite a while after that. But when I did, it was at the card game. And there was a big lump at the back of his hand. There, just on the back of his hand. It looked like a cyst. And the other players obviously had seen him before I saw him because nobody took any notice of it. I did. I was only watching the game. But I said nothing, but none of my business. But during the game, one of his partners, a middle-aged man, who by the way is dead since, but that's only coincidence, that has nothing to do with it. I don't know whether it has or not, but no, it has. It's nothing to do, nothing to do. But in any case, this man I'm talking about, Matty, was collecting up the cards to shuffle them, to deal them out for the next deal, when all of a sudden his partner, this man I'm talking about, big man, strong man, middle-aged man, all of a sudden, for no reason that any of us could see, he caught Matty's hand like that, and he said, I'll fix that for you. The bump in his hand, I'll fix that. And he, bang, down on the flat of the table. And of course, no, that would hurt anybody, young or old. And Matty was a man of about 88. And to get a whip like that of a fist of a big man down on the table, and of course, we all, holy Christ, what is the name of God was that for? And there was silence. As there would be. No, I thought that'd be a fight. I thought one of the partners would, hit a belt on the man with it. But no. And now he pulled his hand, like I would, like you would, like anybody would. And you could see he was hurt. You could see he was hurt, naturally. But somehow or other, he collected the cards and dealt them and the game went on. But the good was gone out of the game. And after the next couple of counts, the game finished. And people scattered. Well, it was late anyway, because the game there never starts until maybe 11:30 or thereabouts. And I saw him no more until maybe about 2 weeks later. And when I did see him, he had a bandage on his hand. And of course, I asked him the natural question, how's the hand? And he told me that a short time after the incident in the pub, the hand got sore. And he couldn't walk around the farm as he had been doing. He was a very healthy man, even though he was in his late 80s. And it got red, and pus gathered in it, and he decided he'd have to go to the doctor because it got so stiff. He went to the doctor, and the doctor took a look at it, and he said, I'd have to lance that to let out the badness out of it. And he gave Marty an injection, and he did just that. But what came out of it, as well as the old badness, but a thorn about an inch long. And Matty said, could I take that? No, the doctor dressed his hand, of course, and put a proper dressing in it, And Matty said, I'll take that if we don't mind. The doctor didn't mind. He put it in a little resealable plastic envelope and gave it to him. And Matty told me he came home, and the first thing he did was up to the fort and gave it back to them. Then, he said, I gave it back to them because he said my wife was right. I should never have touched it. And he said it was a warning from the boys. And if I had to get a second warning, he said, it could cost me my arm or worse. And he never touched the fort after that. And he's not well, you might say he's superstitious, that's up to yourself, but he's a level-headed man. And he said to me that how could you get a thorn an inch long in your hand without knowing about it? Impossible, he said. And I'd agree with him, because I have often, and you have often been picking blackberries or something, and got a little blackberry thorn in your finger, and you'll know about it. And I have often done the same, and I've been rooting around in my finger with a needle to try to get the thorn like that out. And finally I would get it out, and you could hardly see it. And a thorn an inch long, Matty said, that was no ordinary thorn. That was a warning to me to mind my own business. And I did. And he said, let the bloody bushes grow out across the field if they want to. I said, they can. And the fort is still there, and he's still there. But the man who did the other thing, well, he isn't. But like, I